Kwe. Hello, everyone. This is Stephen Nojiri, and this is an audio book review for the Book of Samurai, Book 1, Fundamental Teachings. As most of you know, this book was written by Anthony Cummins and his translator, Yoshie Minami. And this book has been out for a while, and many of you who are watching the video are going to probably already own the book, but maybe some of you who are listening to this audio don't already own the book, or you've purchased the book but you haven't really spent much time with the book. The book was published in 2015. It is now the end of summer to midsummer, end of summer 2017. It's August, so it's summer of 2017. The book has been out for a while now. So the primary question is, why am I doing an audio book review of this book 2 years after it's been released? Basically, it's been out for 2 years, so why now? The simple answer to that question is that when the book came out, there was a lot of investment in the book. A lot of different people had investments for different pros and cons. So now, 2 years later, the book has been out. A lot of people who sort of have a personal investment or personal agenda, that all that sort of played itself out. 2 years later, we can now sit and look at the book, and we can discuss the book, and we can review the book, and we can critique the book, and we can praise the book, we can condemn the book, we can do all of these different things with the book, and we have more freedom to do this because so much of the politics or the social support or social uproar around the book, all of these things have pretty much played themselves out. As many of you, some of you may or may not know, without going into too many details, because this is supposed to be a book review, the book had a lot of supporters and the book had a lot of detractors. And for the first year and a half, easy, it's 2 years, and still there's some controversy and some sort of social media drama based around the book. But again, 2 years later, we have we have much more freedom now to objectively look at the book without it becoming some sort of taking sides with one organization or taking sides with another, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As many of you know, I don't play those games anymore. So 2 years after the book is released, now I will talk about the book, do a audio book review, because now it's safe to. Now it's appropriate to. Now there's most of the fire based around the social media element is gone. So, as most of you know, but most of you know, but some of you don't, the Book of Samurai, Book 1, Fundamental Teachings, is it's the Natori collection of manuals. And Anthony Cummins, the author of the book, is a friend of mine, and for years, he has collected all of the Natori scrolls, manuals. There's a lot of them, and this book is only the beginning, so that's why it's literally just called Book 1. And long story short, it's an entire teaching, it's an entire curriculum from A to Z, from the start up to the end. It contains this book alone, this first book, contains a vast amount of information, both specifically for a student of Natori in the past, but also for sociologists, anthropologists, historians, ethno-historians, etc., etc. Some of you who are listening, most of you probably should know that Stephen Nojiri, I'm an anthropologist, and been to university. I have a degree. I'm a legit anthropologist, and I am an ethno-historian, meaning that my focus is on ethnography and also history. And so what I love to do is I love to do what's called ethno-history, which is ethno-history is basically an ethnography of a group of people, but over time. So you look at their past and you do an ethnography of their past and you do an ethnography of their future, and it creates an entire continuum. This book, the Book of Samurai, even though this is just the first book, it's massive. Let's go straight to the book. First off, the book is, as we all are aware, it's hardback, so it's excellent. It has the paper cover is excellent, the hardback cover is excellent. The entire book is over 300 pages. Um, I think it's 20-something chapters, 23, 24 something chapters. Each chapter is divided into sections. The overall presentation of the book is impressive. It is a proper book. Okay, it is not lacking in that department. So, all right, you can't judge a book by its cover. However, the cover of this book is excellent, and so we can actually now, having said that, we can move into the book itself. But I did want to comment on the book itself. The presentation of the book is excellent. The crimson color with the gold is nice. Usually, you have to be careful with like gold leaf or gold foil because it can come off looking extremely gaudy. But in this particular case, the crimson and the gold is very impressive. So the book itself, like I said, I'm not going to go through obviously every page. That would take forever. But this particular book, book one, is I think it's the Heika Jodan. Let me just check the book itself. Yeah, Heika Jodan, right. Heika Jodan Omaki, discussion on Heika, soldier families or families of war, Jodan no Maki, right, okay, discussions on the samurai film. So Heika Jodan no Maki. It is, so that's the one Maki, that's one scroll. And I don't remember. Me and Anthony have. Well, Anthony obviously he has copies of all of them, but we have numerous times sat down and looked at the Natori, different scrolls, different manuals. My specialty is Kusanokiru, Fukushima-ru. So I don't, obviously I've not gone through all the scrolls. I've not seen all of them. I haven't memorized them, but I have seen a lot of them. I've seen a lot of the material. Anthony has shared with me a lot of the material. And again, I just want to reiterate to you guys, when you see this book, and this book is, 300 something pages, that's just one scroll. That's one section of the teaching. It's like the first, book one, it's the first section. So that is impressive in and of itself. It's a massive undertaking. It's a massive project. Anthony and his team plan on doing all of the scrolls. So you're looking at a considerable amount of printed material in English. So this is book one, and it's 300 something pages. And then book two will, every book, every scroll will not be its own book, is my understanding, because some of the scrolls are small. Not all of them are as huge as the Heika Jodan, right? So some of them, like book two, I think is going to be 2 scrolls in one. And some of them will be one, some will be one, some of the future books will be one book, and then some of them will be 3 or 4 scrolls in one book. So it's impressive, the amount of work and the amount of work, the undertaking to produce 400 pages of translation 10 times is very, very impressive. Let's see. So anyway, so in terms of presentation, we have a great presentation. The book this is a solid book, and it is very the goal, what him and his team have set out to do, is very impressive. There are people out there that dislike him and the team. However, agendas and taking sides completely off to the side. We're looking at dozens of scrolls, which will equal thousands of pages. So it's a great undertaking. And the quality of the production of this book, and the quality of the translation, and the cohesiveness of the translation, and the cohesiveness of the presentation of the material is excellent in this book one. So therefore, assuming that Anthony and his team keeps up the pace, we're going to have 10, 12 massive books of high quality, both in presentation but also in the material and the cohesiveness of the material. When I say the cohesiveness of the material, this is a very important point. In this first book, the quality of the translation and the presentation and the overall presentation, meaning how the material's been translated, how it's been laid out, that pace, the quality of that keeps its pace through the entire book. So it's not like the book is, well translated and well put together for the first 200 pages, but then they get tired and the quality starts to go to shit later on after, around page 300. The quality is cohesive throughout the quality continues through the whole book, and it makes page 100 cohesive to page 300. You don't get a sense that it's getting cheaper or getting less attention the deeper in the book you're going. From the very first part to the very end, the quality is maintained, and that's extremely important. When you have a large project such as this, it is very easy for certain parts to stand out as being, very well done, and then other parts you can tell that the team sort of like pulled their punches at that point. Every part of this book appears to have proper attention spent to it, and so therefore, I have, like I said, I've read some of the Natori material, some of the source material Anthony has let me look at and read, but I have not read the source material. I have not read the Heika Jodan from start to finish in the original Japanese. I've never seen the original from start to finish. So I can't say how good the translation is compared to the original Japanese. However, knowing the source material, knowing Yoshie, the translator, I feel confident that the translation is extremely close to the original intention. You have to remember, when you translate something, it's not as simple as you take one word and you replace it for another word. You have to take the intentionality of the original text, the meaning, the concepts, and the intentionality, and try to transmute it into English. And that's why when we say translation, the word translation is it doesn't quite capture the essence of it. You're not literally just giving an English meaning for each word. You're trying to capture the feeling, the meaning. You're trying to transmute it from Japanese into English. And it's a difficult process, even for people who are native speakers, to take an old Japanese text and to turn it into something that's coherent in English, that makes sense in English, and still reflects at least the majority of the meaning and the intention of the original text, is quite a feat. And this book does that. So I know there's some people that question, is this completely accurate? Well, no translation is ever going to be a perfect transmutation of the original text into another language. There will be little mistakes here and there. There will be little errors here and there. Anybody who thinks that a translation can be perfect doesn't translate documents. If someone tells you that a translation can be 100% perfect from one language to another, they don't do translation work as a professionally. Because any professional translator will tell you that it is impossible to take it from the original to the new language without something being lost or mistaken or erred in the process. Because you're literally you're taking the original concept and the idea and you're transmuting it into another language's concepts and ideas. So it's a very difficult process, and I commend Anthony and his team because this book does an excellent job at taking the original source text. So like I said, I haven't read the original source text, so I couldn't tell you what is and what isn't, but I've read bits and pieces of the source text, and I see how I would have translated it is how they've translated it. So selfishly, I can say that I can agree to the translation. This is translated very well. In the past, that I've worked with Anthony and his team, and I used to be on his team for a while, and so I know how they translate, and I know how it works in terms of Anthony and how Yoshie. I'll read it and I'll think it says this. They'll read it and they'll think it says, and so I have an idea of how they think and how the original goes to that, like the original text, how it ends up being transmuted when they work on it, and it's very accurate. And so, again, I know there's a lot. So, what I'm getting at is that this book is a great translation. Long and short of it, this is an excellent translation. All right. Someone wants 100% perfect translation, you're an idiot because no such thing can possibly ever exist. As a translation of the Heika Jodan, this book is an excellent, very professional, as good as you can get translation of the Heika Jodan. Because you have to be able to decipher, really understand the original, and then be able to explain that concept in English. Right, so it's actually two tasks. So anyway, I'm getting off of topic here. The point of the matter is, so we have a book. Its presentation is excellent. The quality of the translation is excellent. It is cohesive through the entire piece. You get the sense that the team has not pulled their punches or gotten lazy anywhere in the text. From start to finish, the quality is consistent. So now we can discuss. Now I will discuss personal ideas. Okay, so again, to recap, the production of the book is amazing. Like, the actual physical quality of the book is top notch. The quality of the translation is top notch. The quality is consistent through the whole book. So now, what is the value of this book? So now I spent 15 minutes discussing the mechanics behind the production of the book, and I've given the book an A. Right? It has a gold star. Production of the book is a gold star. Some people have said that the book is crap, and they've literally said that, and I'm putting this out there. They've said that because they hate Anthony Cummins on a personal level. Personal issues aside, this book is a gold star. This book is a high quality book. So what's the usage of the book? Now, a lot of people will come to the Book of Samurai because they want to dress in armor and flail around with swords, or they want to dress up in ninja outfits and use grappling hooks and spiked shoes and whatever. And this book is absolutely not for those people. The Heika Jodan is a vast collection of teachings categorized into sensible categories. And again, the categorization is not done by Anthony. The book's categories, the book's enumerations, everything is the original text. In the original text, Natori has decided what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, what order things are, how things are grouped together. None of that is Anthony and his team, because some people were complaining about that, some of these things shouldn't be categorized together, but that's how Natori did it. So the categories of this book, someone may disagree with, but then they need to take it up with Natori Masazumi because he's the author. So it's a traditional kind of step where it's categories, and each category has multiple points. There are two commentators that have commented on these, and it's very, very easy to tell when Natori is writing, and then the commentators, you can tell that Natori is writing at the end of the 1600s, beginning of 1700s, and the commentators, you can tell they're way into the 1700s, late 1700s. And the reason, this is where the value, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. The value of this book, to me personally, as an anthropologist, as a ethno-historian, this book is an ethno-historical treasure trove. It is filled with information about the culture and just the culture of late 1600s period Bushi in Japan, and late 1700s, because the commentators are from the late 1700s. You can tell based on what they're talking about. So the commentators give you a deep insight into the ethno-history, the sociology, the psychology, the social mores, taboos of the late 1700s, and Natori's parts give you an insight into the sociology, the psychology, the taboos, the social mores, of the late 1600s. And also, Natori's own history, so you know that his family is coming from serving Takeda, etc., 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 and they serve in Wakayama, or Kishu to be more appropriate. So you get also very geographically specific references as well, which again, from an ethno-historical viewpoint, is a treasure trove. It's just like my introduction to the Bansenshukai. When I used to work with Anthony on his team, and we produced the Book of Ninja, and I did the introduction to lockpicking, and I said the Bansenshukai is a treasure trove of the lockpicking information. Lockpicking, but not just the lockpicking, but the lock types. The information about locks in old Japan is preserved very well in the Bansenshukai, because the Bansenshukai presents so many different types of locks. The lock typology is recorded in the Bansenshukai, as is the ways to pick and to bypass the locks, which means that not only are the types of locks recorded, but the usage and the locations of such locks are recorded, but also the internals of the locks are recorded, and thus the methods for bypassing or picking the internals. And a lot of people are just like, oh, it's lock picking. But if you're an ethno-historian, it's more than just one simple thing. It's a record. It is a very, very detailed record. So now moving back to Book of Samurai, Book 1, Fundamental Teachings, you have, from an ethno-historian viewpoint, you have this massive catalog that's been translated very well, and the quality continues through the entire translation. And it's in a pretty book binding. All of these socio-cultural practices and beliefs of the Bushi, of these locations and these time periods. It is like I said, it's a treasure trove of information for somebody like me, an anthropologist, somebody that operates on a professional level, that actually, pays attention to making sure that things are at an academic level, an actual, professional academic level. This is very meaningful. So, on one hand, everything to do with sort of like samurai cosplay or samurai wannabes or ninja cosplay, people this, people that, all of that, throw that out the window. Has nothing to do with any of that. The Book of Samurai has great value in just being a collection of this information. Now, people who are into samurai cosplay or samurai martial arts or ninja martial art, ninja cosplay, whatever, dressing up in this, dressing up in that, they might find, you guys who are listening, some of you do that stuff, you might find meaning in it because it'll give you instructions to follow. Like in this book, there all of the rules and the expectations and the beliefs of headhunting, taking heads, presenting heads, all of that. There's an entire section in here about all of the etiquette and the rules and beliefs and values and taboos about headhunting is in this book. Everything about war curtains is in this book. Everything about my personal favorite section in this book is the revenge section, the revenge killing section. It goes through so for a Natori student, there's a start to finish teaching about how to properly commit a revenge killing. So if somebody, and again, from an sociologist, psychologist, ethno-historian perspective, that's amazing, because it not only records the beliefs and the ideology of a world where revenge killings exist, but it also goes deep into the rules and the taboos and the violations of rules and of revenge killings. So you get a look at, if you're, like, you have to understand how it gives you an insight into how society is, the society of the time, the way the society is at the time, the mindset, the world of revenge killings, and then how that has to interact with the world in order for the revenge killings to be acceptable. So in that chapter you get an extreme amount of rules and regulations and taboos and beliefs and superstitions and all of this related to the revenge killings. and what's appropriate and what's not. So, we're talking about revenge killings, but then you have this entire world of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what's honorable, what's dishonorable, what will keep you out of jail, what will put you in jail, et cetera, et cetera. Like, for example, the revenge killing is legal if it's your parent or a sibling. But if it's a nephew or somebody that's not a parent or a sibling, it's illegal. It's not honorable. You're not supposed to do revenge. So there's certain people that you can revenge, certain people you can't revenge. And then there's an entire section for how to interact with other people who are on a revenge killing mission, when to help them, when not to help them, et cetera, et cetera. So it really lays out the social contracts, so to speak, of the samurai to each other in terms of what they allow and what they don't allow from one another. It's amazing. It's very, like, if you wanted to start to create an ethnographical or sociological profile of the Bushi of the late 1600s, this is an absolute required piece. You would absolutely need that information to sort of fill out that profile. And it's been recorded here in the Heika Jodan, and it's been translated at a very effective and high quality level. So translated well, presented well. And I am actually very happy that Anthony and his team have put this book out. All personal, I know there's lots of people that have their personal views in politics, but all of that needs to be just put aside. And people should understand the ethno-historical value of all the information that has been collected and translated and presented in this book. Let's see. Page 80. I made a few notes. Page 92. Oh yeah, there's page 92 has this articles on emergencies that gives you a very good insight into samurai psychology about all of these different points for handling emergencies. It gives you psychological insight, so it gives you sort of cultural information of the mind, but it also gives you cultural information of physical practices, such as the fact that you have to choose between a leather fire jacket or a cloth fire jacket. And Natori says to go with a cloth fire jacket because you soak the fire jacket and that works better than leather, etc., etc., etc. So that's both a physical cultural phenomenon, but it's also a little bit of insight psychologically. But the part that comes after that is all of these points on keeping good manners while in an emergency, and it goes through that, and that also gives psychological insight and sociological insight. So that the articles on emergencies is just this great chapter that lets you see not only how samurai responded to, or the samurai you could say the samurai of the Kishu province in the late 1600s responded to earthquakes like this. They responded to fires like this. They responded to floods like this. So you learn how everyone in general is responding, but then Natori will then tell you how he wants his students to respond and the sort of things that he wants them to think and do while responding. So you get 3 different bits of information. You get how the normal person of the province responds, then you get how Natori wants you to think, and then the physical action he wants you to do. And this gives you 3 very important key pieces of information. And this happens over and over again through this entire book. You'll have something brought up. You'll have a point that's brought up, and then there'll be a little bit of historical information recorded, and then you'll get the insight of Natori, and then you'll get a new technique, etc., etc. And it just, again, if you wanted to study it and recreate it, whatever, that's one thing, but I'm not going there. I'm sticking purely with the fact that it is just a series of sociological, psychological, anthropological insights over and over and over and over again. Let's see. Chapter 15. I know it's in here somewhere. Chapter 15, I think, is a very interesting. Yeah, so chapter 15, I think, is a very interesting chapter too, because it's all about taking up a battle position and setting up your shelters. So it just gives you a really, it's a short chapter, but it gives you a real definitive insight into the expectations of what a camp Like if you have a bunch of samurai and they're going to stop and set up shelter, what that actually looks like. So you get information of the physical culture, like this many sticks tied in this way, but then you also get some of the psychological, sociological insight, which is golden. And again, this just pattern repeats over and over and over again. Over and over and over again, you get physical examples and you get sociological, psychological examples over and over and over again. And so by the time you read all 400 pages of this book, you get a very clear and a very developed understanding of the mindset, the psychology, the sociology of a Natori-ryu student. So a samurai who's living in the Kishu area in the late 1600s, and he's studying this school, he's a student of this school, you would have a really good insight as to how he thinks and how he behaves. And you would have insight to the material, the physical material culture he would be involved in. You also, like if there's light, then there's dark, right? So going hand in hand with that, you will get an insight into how just all of the samurai of the Kishu area in the late 1600s are behaving, because you have to learn how they're behaving so that you can distinguish the difference of the Natori-ryu student. So you end up learning both. You end up learning how the Natori-ryu student does it, and by learning how he does it, you also learn how he doesn't do it, which is usually the way that is referenced as other people do it this way. So other people do it this way, so you learn that way. We do it this way, and then you learn that way. So you end up learning both. You end up learning the standard and then the Natori specific way. And then on top of that, the commentators, who are clearly from the late 1700s, they comment, and that adds an entire other layer. So you learn all this information from the end of the 1600s with Natori Masazumi himself, and then the commentators expand upon that by giving you insight into the sociology, the psychology, and the material culture of people, samurai of the late 1700s. And you end up with many different streams of information. Psychology of the late 1600s, sociology of the late 1600s, material culture of the late 1600s, material culture of the late 1700s, psychology of the late 1700s, the sociology of the late 1700s, religion of the 1600s, religion of the 1700s. There's a lot of information streams that are running parallel through this entire book. And so I can't speak to anybody about the value of this book for martial arts, or the value of this book for pretending to be a samurai or pretending to be a ninja. I would almost think that this book would chase away cosplayers or chase away fake ninjas or chase away fake samurai, because the amount of raw information in this book, I would think, would be terrifying to cosplayers, terrifying to fake ninjas, terrifying to fake samurai. The book would elicit fear and aggression from people because of the amount of just raw data, raw truth that is in the book. This book is not for people who want to fuck around and pretend. This book is not for people who want to play and pretend. This book is not for playing. This book is not for lying and pretending. This book is for academics. This book is for people who actually give a shit about the real ethno-history of Bushi in the Kishu region during the late 1600s. And then along with that, an addendum for the late 1700s. That's what the book is really for. So again, I can't speak on the usage of the book for everybody, but I would think that the book would be disinteresting, and there might be some animosity to the book from people who like to cosplay or do martial arts or pretend that they're a ninja and stuff like that, because, you know, that's a bunch of fake shit. And the book is filled with a lot of historical, accurate, truthful information. So usually where you have good, solid, academic, well presented, well laid out, cohesive presentation of facts, that usually chases away people who like to just pretend and play around. So the book probably is a bad idea for people who want to pretend and play around. So I can say that the book is highly recommended to people who seriously, who actually value and respect and take Bushi ethno-history as seriously. People who respect and seriously, how do I say this? People who respect and take serious Bushi ethno-history will like this book, and I recommend that they get this book or check it out from the library, buy it, read it, whatever. It is absolutely a treasure trove of information, and you will appreciate this book. Other people, I don't know. Other people who don't, if you don't value and you don't respect samurai ethno-history, you will hate this book. But if you respect and value samurai ethno-history, you will love this book. And so therefore, that's my official recommendation. If you value and you respect samurai ethno-history, then get the book, read the book. If you don't respect samurai ethno-history, if you don't value samurai ethno-history, if samurai and ninja to you are just a means to play around and pretend, then you should avoid this book. Because this book will not be your friend, because this book will show that everything you're doing is bullshit. So, there you go, my recommendation. If you're an academic, if you're somebody who actually values and samurai ethno-history, get the book. And if you are just a cosplayer or you like to pretend that you're something you're not, you should avoid this book because it will piss you off. So I don't know what else to say other than the book is it's 400 pages. It's far too long to go through here and just try to pull different samples out. I thought about doing that, but then I realized it's just way too huge. It's incredibly large. There's hundreds of points. There's so much there's so much in here. The organization of an army, all the etiquette and rules around taking heads, all the taboos and superstitions around taking heads. There's an entire section in here about the I Ching. There's how to settle arguments. Like if you're samurai and you're staying at an inn and like the locals get in a fight, there's a way that as a Natori samurai you're supposed to settle the fight. There's all kinds. I mean, it is just packed full. Like, again, that's why I'm saying don't get this book if you want to like be a samurai or be a ninja, but get this book if you want a damn good insight into the life of a Kishu samurai in the late 1600s. And that's about it. So I recommend the book. It's an awesome book, but I don't recommend the book for any political reason. I don't recommend the book because of anything that has to do with anything other than the book has a high value as an academic work and as a social, psychological, religious, ethno-historical record of a specific group of Bushi of the Kishu region in the 1600s with addendums via commentary of the late 1700s. It's perfect. It's an excellent book and I recommend it.